You probably don't think twice about flipping the switch, turning on the tap, or opening the fridge. But what if one day none of it worked? This isn't just a doomsday thing. We're talking about storms, grid failures, cyber attacks, real events that are already happening more often and lasting longer than anyone expected. The good news? I'm going to show you practical ways to keep your family safe, fed, and functional when the power goes out for a long time.
The Ready Life. Into the country.
Hey, I'm Nick, and welcome to The Ready Life. We've been off-grid for 25 years now and helped thousands of folks gain independence from the systems that control their water, food, heat, and power. And today, we're going to show you how to get your family ready too, even if you're on a budget and don't have a lot of time to put into this. Let's get started.
You know, you can't live without water. In an emergency, it's going to be the first thing on your mind. Do I have enough water?
FEMA recommends 1 gallon per person per day for drinking, cooking, and sanitation. And that sounds about right to me based upon our water usage during camping trips. So for our family of 4, for 1 week, that'd be about 28 gallons, or you could round it up to 30 if you want. So what's it gonna take to get 30 gallons of water? 5 gallons of water storage for a little over $5. You try and find a food grade 5-gallon water container, and you're gonna pay 15, 20, 25 bucks, something like that. So this is a really inexpensive way to do water storage. So it'd take about 6 flats for our family of 4 to have a 1-week supply with relatively almost indefinite shelf life. Now, the one drawback is that you wouldn't have containers that are easily refillable. If you ended up needing to go to a water source and refill the containers and bring them back home, this wouldn't be ideal for that. So in that kind of a scenario, it might not hurt to have 1 or 2 5-gallon containers that are food grade, ready for water storage.
For a more advanced option, you can get a food grade 55-gallon barrel or drum to store water in. Sometimes you can find these used, like for example, this one, I believe it used to have like fruit juice concentrate in it for large companies, but you can buy them new also. So you'll want to find something that's food grade, rain barrel or water storage container. Be sure that you store these in a cool place that's out of the sun, because then that will discourage growth and things in the water that you don't want. Also be sure that you disinfect the container really well before you store your water in it. And then you'll want to rotate that water through the barrel, I think once every 6 months or so.
And the ultimate, if you have property, would be to have an underground cistern like this buried, where you have a large amount of water capacity and it stays cool and it cuts off sunlight where the potential for growth is greatly diminished in there. And that's an awesome route to go. But even if you do something like this, if you're not using the water as part of your regular water system where it's constantly getting rotated, then you would want to manually rotate it every now and then by, emptying it out and putting fresh water in or treating it, something along those lines. What if your water storage runs out before the water is back on, though? Disasters come at a time when water can be scarce, and the water that's around may not be drinkable. But there are a number of ways to purify water.
So the first thing we're going to look at is options that are available to anyone. So if you're going to find water, you want to try and find the cleanest, freshest, clearest water that you can. But whatever water that is, you're still going to need to filter out debris as much as possible. So I've got a pot and a cloth, and I'm just going to put this cloth over. If you can find a rubber band or something that you can fit around it to just help you hold that in place, that's great. Or tie a belt or something around it, or just try and hold it as best you can. So I'm going to filter this through the cloth, and it's going to help to collect the debris out of the water. Once we've filtered that out, there's all the stuff that we can't see that can make us really sick in the water still. Boiling is going to be your best option if you have no other options around. You can boil it on a camp stove. From super cold water, we took about 1 gallon and it took us around 9 minutes to bring it to a complete boil. You want to make sure that you boil your water for at least 1 minute. If you're above 5,000 feet, it's more like 3 minutes. But it doesn't take long to kill all of the bacteria and things in there that's going to give you a lot of issues. Now, recognizing that this is not going to remove chemicals out of the water, it's only going to kill anything that's alive or that could make you sick in the water. One last quick note on boiling water. Water can taste kind of flat after you've boiled it. So you can add a pinch of salt to your water to help give it better flavor. Or the other option is you can dump your water back and forth between containers to help aerate it and give it more of a delicious taste. Another option is to boil it on your wood stove if you have one, or you can build a fire outside and boil your water on the fire.
Boiling is your primary option, but if for whatever reason that's not feasible, another thing that almost anybody can do with something that they have in their home is to use regular household bleach. And if that's what you've got, then you can treat water. So first of all, just like with boiling, you're going to want to filter any sediment out and this is especially important with bleach because it can't do its work if there's sediment in the water. So let it settle, pour it through a cloth, whatever it takes to get it clear. Then we can use the CDC guidelines, which are kind of middle of the road guidelines of almost 1/8 teaspoon of bleach per 1 gallon of water. That's teaspoon, not tablespoon. So we didn't have a 1/8 teaspoon in our house, or we couldn't find it. And so what we're doing is we're doubling that. We've got 2 gallons of water here. And we have a 1/4 teaspoon. And so I'm going to go just under 1/4 teaspoon. I'm not going to fill it up all the way. I'm going to do just under that. I'm going to scatter it around. And then you want to stir it in. And then you want to let it sit for 30 minutes and let it do its work. There should be a faint smell of bleach, but it'll be drinkable. And remember, just like with boiling, this doesn't remove any bad stuff from the water like chemicals. This just kills the live bad stuff.
Something every home, every car, everyone should have in their purse is a life straw. It's something that's inexpensive and easy to have on hand, and it gives you so many options when it comes to purifying water. First of all, you're going to want to find water. Find the cleanest water that you can. I just found here where this water is kind of trickling out of the ground a little bit. And it seems to be the cleanest and freshest water around here. So I'm going to collect some water here. So now I've got some water as clean as it can be in this area. And then I can just pull this off, stick it in here. Actually, I'm going to pull this off too. Okay, now I can stick it in here and hello, water. So the life straw is something that everyone should have. This will filter up to 1,000 liters of water. Just remember, though, it does not filter out chemicals or toxic spills. If you're in an industrial area and there's a lot of debris in the water, you may not want to use that there. Try and find the cleanest source that you can. The Berkey is better suited to dealing with water like that.
Those are some basic options, but if you have a little more money to put into this and you want a big step forward, that would be the Berkey right here, or other similar options. But the general idea is it's a countertop filter. You pour water in the top container. We like the black filters. The Berkey black filters are the better ones. And gravity forces it through the filters and it drips down into the lower container where you now have drinking water. And then you can use the spigot here on the front to get your drinking water, cooking water, whatever. Excellent option, filters out all kinds of stuff. Or if you want something that's portable for your bug out kit, then this is a nice option. We like these for camping. This one is made by MSR. You put the dirty water in this bag, hang it up in a tree, gravity pushes it through the tube, through the filter, into this bag where you end up with clean water. You don't even have to pump like you do with so many backpacking filters. So now that you've got a solid plan for storing and purifying water, the next big question is, what's your family going to eat when the shelves go bare? That's where the 521 Preparedness Plan comes in. It includes a full 21-day series and a resources page with links to the tools and systems that you're going to need. It's free and it'll save you a ton of time. Just head over to thereadylife.com/521. And now let's dive into food.
You've probably experienced this just before or after a big storm. If you're like most folks, you have some food in your pantry, but not enough to last very long. Everyone's situation is different, but think of how much money you could spare right now to bulk up your pantry. Maybe it's just $50 or $500. Whatever it is, especially if your budget's tight, you'll want to maximize the amount of food you buy with that money and focus on the foods that make filling meals, the kinds that stick to your ribs. But this is important. You don't want to buy food that's just going to sit and go bad. We advocate for a rotating pantry. Eat what you store and store what you eat. So you want to consider the meals that your family typically enjoys and stock up on those foods, especially the most cost-effective ones.
For us, that would be items like rice and beans, which we often eat in different forms. Pasta, oats for breakfast in various forms, like cooked oats or granola, and so on. These are foods that are relatively inexpensive, they're filling, and we enjoy them on a regular basis. I know the price of food has really skyrocketed lately, and you may be thinking that stocking up your pantry is going to cost a fortune, and it certainly could, but I want to show you how far even a relatively small $50 budget can go.
So what does $50 of food look like? Well, you just looked at it. So we've collected the items, and I've tallied it all up here on my phone. Here we are. $49.77 for this food that I have here in my cart. Now, how far, how long is this going to last us? So we just calculated up the numbers of servings. I know how many cups of dry beans it takes to fill a quart, and I know how much my family would typically eat in a meal. With the rice also, I think we figured there was about 40 meals between the rice and the beans here. Then there's 2 weeks of quick oats, 2 weeks worth of quick oat meals here. And then my family really likes pasta, so about 1 box and 1 can per meal. So it's another 4 meals there. We figured this would easily feed our family for 2 weeks. This is assuming you've got some salt and some seasonings and things at home that you can season this stuff with.
The reason it's important that you only buy food that you enjoy is because you'll be eating this food in a month or two and then replacing it with fresh supplies in order to keep it rotated and fresh. But I just want you to see what's possible even in this expensive era that we live in.
You'll just need to have some seasonings and a way to cook stuff like your rice and beans. For that, a simple camp stove with several spare fuel canisters can fit the bill. This is our ultralight backpacking stove that runs on butane, and it'll work just fine. But something bigger like an old Coleman stove could probably be even better, especially if it runs on propane, which doesn't go bad. Just make sure you stock up on fuel cylinders for whatever stove you plan on using. And remember, if you have to boil your water to purify it, you'll be using a lot more fuel than expected. Dutch ovens are another really excellent tool for cooking and baking off the grid. There's a number of different ways you can use them. Here we're using an open campfire with coals, but you could also use charcoal briquettes or even a grill for a more even temperature. Here we have stew cooking over the fire. We also have a bread that's baking, and then we did some cinnamon rolls, all with the coals just from our fire here.
This is another off-grid cooking option. It's a sun oven, and the reflectors reflect the sun into the glassed-in area here, and the temperature goes up on the thermometer. Obviously, you got to have some direct sun. This is not a sunny day, and so the temperature isn't getting very high. But if you're in a location where you get a good bit of sun, then this could be a decent option for you. And the one thing I would say is this isn't a cheap option. It is going to cost a little bit.
If you have a wood stove, check and see if you can cook on it like I'm doing here.
This is our summertime canning stove. When it's too hot to can inside, we'll set this up outside, and you can can a whole bunch of stuff on one tank of propane. And so this could also make a great emergency stove for cooking, or you could use your camp stove, or if you have a grill of some sort, a propane or a charcoal grill, you can use that as long as you've stashed up on briquettes or charcoal chunks or propane. So with food handled, the next thing to think about is hygiene. The 521 Preparedness Plan includes off-grid sanitation strategies and a full resources page with links to the gear we trust. You can grab it for free at thereadylife.com/521.
When disaster hits, there's a hidden killer most people miss. Poor hygiene and contaminated water can turn a simple emergency into a full-scale health crisis. But with a few simple steps, you can protect your family from this silent threat. The first thing we're going to look at is personal hygiene options. My favorite thing to use is baby wipes. And so we have a stash of baby wipes on hand. Also, you'll want to have some hand sanitizer. These are great options, especially if water is scarce. The next thing you want to consider is make sure that you have bars of soap and some extra dish soap on hand. Nothing worse than running out of dish soap or bars of soap in the bathroom. Also, something that's often overlooked is toothbrushes and an extra stash of toothpaste. Having extra toothpaste on hand can really make a big difference in an emergency. And if you don't already have a stash of TP on hand, make sure that you get a stash. And last, ladies, make sure that you have a stash of personal hygiene products, whatever it is that you're comfortable using. For me personally, I like to use a silicone cup because then I don't have to stockpile products and I don't have the extra waste. And it's a very sanitary option.
It's important for everyone to keep their hands clean, especially in a disaster. And this makes a great makeshift hand washing station, but you can use any kind of a bucket or container that has a spigot in the bottom. Use it to wash your hands. And if you are limited on your drinking water, then you can use other less savory water for this. And you could sanitize it with bleach. And speaking of bleach, you can also use it for disinfecting surfaces. And it's a stronger mixture though, and it would be somewhere around 1/3 cup of bleach to 1 gallon of water, and you can use that to disinfect any surfaces or whatever you already use. If your sewer system is working, then by all means take the lid off the tank of your toilet, fill it up with any water you can get your hands on, even if it's dirty water, and you've got a fully functional toilet. But if your sewer system isn't working, you're going to have to look somewhere else. And this is one cheap option, quick and easy, 5 or 6 gallon bucket. And no, there's not barley flakes in here anymore. This is a repurposed bucket. And you can put a lid. This is actually a toilet seat lid that's quite comfortable. It was inexpensive. You can line the bucket with a trash bag, and it works quite well after each use. Pour a little lime on top to keep the smell under control. And when it gets more full, you can find some woods that aren't too far away, dig a big hole, and bury this.
This is our camp solar shower, and it's really nice. You fill it with water and then lay it on the ground with the clear side facing up, and the sun will warm this water up really nice and quick. And then you just hang it up as high as you can above you and turn this little nozzle, and look at that. Nice shower.
If you can stay clean, manage your waste, and keep pure water on hand, everything's going to start looking up, and everyone's going to be healthier too. And with that foundation, clean water, sanitation, and hygiene, it makes everything else more manageable. But one of the biggest threats in a long-term outage, especially in winter, is staying warm. The 521 Preparedness Plan walks you through proven heat strategies and links you to equipment that you're going to need to get your family prepared. It's all at thereadylife.com/521.
Did you know that there have been more hypothermia cases in the 30 to 50 degree range than in colder temperatures? And interestingly, you can die faster from cold exposure than starvation or even thirst. So how do you stay warm in a power outage? First, the most obvious answer would be to have a fireplace or a wood stove like this. If you already have one, then this would not be a problem for you. If you're able to install one, do it. But if that's not an option for you, let's look at some low-cost and easy options.
If a wood stove isn't feasible for you, there are some non-electric heating options out there. Not a lot, but there are some. This is one, for instance. It is a direct vent propane heater that is permanently installed, thermostatically controlled, and it's completely non-electric. However, something like this is going to be more on the pricier side of things. And so there are some portable propane heaters out there that are non-electric. You've probably seen Mr. Heaters like this. This particular style, however, is not rated for indoor use. It's not indoor safe. So you want to make sure you find a indoor safe heater. And I know that Mr. Heater and perhaps some others do make some indoor safe portable units. And then you just want to make sure that you've got enough fuel on hand to get you through the whatever length of time that you might need to keep your home warm for.
Unless sunlight is pouring in your windows are one way that your house will lose a lot of heat quickly, especially if your windows are older, like ours are. So just grab a warm blanket and cover your window really well, like this. And you would be surprised at how much heat you can save in your home by just covering over your windows with a blanket. We do this in the winter here to keep our bathroom warmer.
When you're cold during a disaster, there's nothing like a good old warm, thick blanket or a bunch of them. Our favorites are these military wool blankets. They're very inexpensively priced for what you're getting. And, nice warm wool that stays warm even when it's wet, stays reasonably warm. And they're tough, and we were able to get a whole pack of them for a good price, but even individually, they're still quite reasonably priced for what you're getting. And you may already have sleeping bags, and if you do, that's a great thing to have if it's a warm sleeping bag. Can keep you nice and toasty at night, even if your heat is off. And our favorite brand is the Wiggy's sleeping bags, but there's other good ones too. You want synthetic, that'll stay warm even when it's wet. And if you don't have the money to buy new sleeping bags, you can buy used on places like Facebook Marketplace. It's a great option for finding good deals for things like that.
If you're cold and you're trying to get warm, boil a pot of hot water and dump it into your water bottles, and then you can use that to tuck it down into your sleeping bag to warm up, or hold it in your hands and drink some to get warmed up. Another way to keep warm is to have these wonderful little hand warmers or foot warmers. Look at that, instant heat up to 10 hours. So that's a great thing, and it takes up little to no space.
One strategy is to make small spaces so that you don't have to heat as much space and you can keep it warmer. For instance, if you have a tent, you could pitch that tent in your house, and that makes less space to heat, and it'll keep you a little bit warmer. Or you could use a small room like a closet or something like that where it's less space to heat. Or better still, do a blanket fort. With all those blankets that we've collected, you guys staying warm in there?
Very hot.
Very hot. Every human should be able to start a fire under a variety of conditions, including rainy weather like what we've been dealing with today. To start with, you're going to need a way to start your fire, to actually make fire. And there's a bunch of different options out there. I mean, something as simple as matches. Trouble is that you only have so many of them, and if they get wet, they're no good. You can use a lighter, but trouble with these is they run out of fuel, and yeah, they're kind of big and bulky. So I really, really highly recommend some kind of a ferro stick, like any of these here, that make sparks, big shower of sparks, especially the bigger ones. They can make a really significant shower of sparks. And this is a little pocket one that you can carry with you anywhere, which is really cool. We like these too, so that you've always got it on you. So you can make sparks, but how do you turn that into fire? Well, this is the best way. It's as simple as stuff that you've already got in your home. Cotton balls and Vaseline or petroleum jelly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to soak this cotton ball with Vaseline. Okay, so I think I've gotten it pretty saturated now, and our next step is we're going to squeeze out the excess, because if you leave all that excess in there, it's not going to catch a spark. Okay, I think I've gotten it pretty squeezed out. When I squeeze on it now, I'm not getting much, and it feels noticeably drier, so we're going to call that good. When you're ready to use your cotton balls, you're going to pull it out, and I like to pull just a piece of it off, just a chunk of it off, You don't need the whole cotton ball usually, unless it's just soaking wet everything and you gotta dry it out. But even still, I like to start with a smaller piece, and then you're gonna tear it apart because you wanna expose those fibers, those cotton fibers, so that the sparks can get in there. And then watch what happens when we throw some sparks on it. Boom, one throw of sparks, and off she goes. And this stuff, it burns a long time. And I'd say it's been burning for about a minute, probably. So that's a good amount of time to get a fire going. Birch bark is one of the best things for getting a fire going. Just kind of peel it off. Some birch trees, you can get good slabs of it, like big slabs and everything, but just get what you can. Some of it is really fine paper like this, but this is going to be excellent fire starter, especially when it's wet outside. I want you to bear in mind that this birch bark is super wet. The tree was really wet, and that I got it from because we've gotten a lot of rain. But once it takes off, once it gets lit, it'll just burn and burn for a good while. Look at that stuff burn. If you can get a little flame going, one of the best things to get wet wood to light is pitch, pine pitch. There we go, look at that. Oh man, that is going to make an amazing fire there.
We once did a little experiment and it went for about 15 minutes.
If you can just get a flame going, then and get it going long enough to start the pitch on fire, then you've got an amazing fire source. Okay, I think it's been going almost 5 minutes now, and there's still a ways to go. A lot of fuel left here. You may not always have your cotton balls with you, so it's good to have some other materials that you can pick from. And so this is one type of material that we have here in the Northwest, at least. We call it old man's beard. I don't know what the technical name for it is, but it's moss that grows on trees, and it can be useful if it's not too wet. You want to kind of fluff it up, pull it apart a little bit. There we go. Okay, now you want to have your sticks ready. You don't want to blow too hard. Yeah, get that pitch going. And that'll get anything to light almost. And we've got ourselves a nice fire going now. Starting fires is a skill that takes some practice, so I suggest that you try your hand at it in a safe environment where you aren't going to set the woods on fire. And it's going to be a skill that'll serve you really, really well. So now you've got a plan for water, food, hygiene, and heat, even when the grid's down. But this video is just one part of a bigger picture. The 521 Preparedness Plan gives you access to all 21 days of this series, plus a resources page with product links to tools and extras to help you take action. It's completely free and ready for you at thereadylife.com/521. Start where you are, use what you've got, and get your family ready one step at a time. And check out this video.